In the glittering cliffs of Nice, at the opulent Moonstone villa, a deadly secret unfolds. Hercule Poirot arrives for a sun-soaked retreat, only to find hostess Elise Dupont poisoned by her own perfume, cyanide's bitter almond scent betraying murder. Suspects swirl. Jealous husband Henri, ambitious daughter Claire and her penniless artist fiancé Victor, vengeful cousin Sophie, and loyal butler Pierre. Whispers of a hidden priceless moonstone gem fuel greed and old grudges. Through clever clues, a scratched vial, stained glove, forged letters, Poirot unmasks the killer, Sophie, driven by decades of betrayal. But as justice dawns, the gem's glow reveals folly's true cost. Dive into this Agatha Christie-inspired mystery. Will you spot the twist? Chapter 1. The Azure Coast Beckons. The train from Paris had deposited Hercule Poirot at the station in Nice with its customary efficiency, and now, as the hired motor car wound its way up the steep, sun-baked road toward the cliffs, he permitted himself a small sigh of contentment. The air was perfumed with the salt of the sea and the faint tang of olive groves, a welcome change from the fog-bound streets of London, where he had lately been ensconced. Poirot, ever the fastidious Belgian, straightened his tie and brushed an imaginary speck from his patent leather shoes. Retirement, he often mused, was a state of mind rather than fact. Mysteries had a way of finding him, even on holiday. The Moonstone villa came into view like a vision from a Riviera postcard, a sprawling edifice of white stucco and wrought iron balconies, its architecture a harmonious blend of modern lines and classical grace. Perched precariously on the edge of the promontory, it overlooked the vast expanse of the Mediterranean, where the water shifted from deepest sapphire to turquoise as it met the shore. Poirot's keen eyes noted the terraced gardens descending in steps toward the sea, dotted with cypress trees and blooming bougainvillea. A place of beauty, yes, but also one that whispered of hidden depths, much like the human soul. As the car pulled up to the gravel drive, a familiar figure emerged from the villa's arched entrance. Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot's loyal companion of many adventures, strode forward with his usual bluff enthusiasm, his face bronzed by the southern sun. "Poirot, old chap, delighted you've come. The Duponts are thrilled to have you. Madame Dupont insists you're just the tonic for our little gathering." Poirot alighted with dignity, his small, egg-shaped head tilting in acknowledgement. "Mon cher Hastings, it is I who am delighted. Your letter painted such a picture, the invigorating air, the delightful company. Though you mentioned eccentricity, one must always be prepared for the unexpected." Hastings chuckled as he led the way inside. "Eccentricity? Well, perhaps a touch. Madame Elise Dupont is a force of nature, lively, generous, but with a flair for the dramatic. Her husband Henri is the opposite, a retired banker, all figures and frowns. Then there's their daughter Claire, sharp as a tack, engaged to Victor Lange, an artist chap who's charming but hasn't a sou to his name. Oh, and Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand, a cousin from the provinces, prim as a schoolmistress. And Pierre, the butler, he's been with the family forever, silent as the grave." The interior of the villa matched its exterior in splendor. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and vast windows framed the sea like living paintings. Madame Dupont swept into the hall to greet them, her silk gown rustling like whispers on the wind. She was a woman in her prime, with raven hair piled high and eyes that sparkled with mischief. "Monsieur Poirot, what an honor! Arthur has told us such tales of your exploits. Do come through to the terrace. We're all assembled for apéritifs." Poirot bowed over her hand. "Madame, the honor is mine. Your villa is magnificent. One feels the presence of history here." She laughed, a sound like tinkling bells. "Ah, yes, the Moonstone Villa, named for a family legend, a priceless gem hidden by my great-grandfather during some scandalous affair. Lost to time, they say, but enough of that. Let me introduce you properly." On the terrace, the group lounged in wicker chairs, the late afternoon light casting a golden hue over everything. Monsieur Henri Dupont rose reluctantly, his scowl deepening as he shook Poirot's hand with a grip like cold steel. He was a man of middle height, stout, with a neatly trimmed beard that did little to soften his stern features. "Welcome, Monsieur Poirot. I trust your journey was tolerable." His voice carried the clipped precision of one, accustomed to ledgers and balance sheets. "Most tolerable, monsieur," Poirot replied smoothly. "The views alone were worth the travel." Claire Dupont approached next, arm linked with her fiancé. She was tall and elegant, her dark hair cropped fashionably short, her gaze direct and appraising. "Monsieur Poirot, a pleasure. Mother speaks of you as if you were Sherlock Holmes himself." Poirot smiled. "Ah, but I am no Englishman with a deer stalker, mademoiselle, merely a humble Belgian with an appreciation for order and method." Victor Lange, beside her, offered a warm handshake. He was handsome in a bohemian way, with tousled hair and paint-stained fingers, his smile easy and engaging. "Fascinating to meet a real detective. I dabble in portraits myself. Perhaps I could sketch you one day." Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand sat apart, her posture rigid, a lace collar buttoned high at her throat. She nodded primly, her thin lips pursing. "Monsieur Poirot, I have read of your cases in the papers. Most intriguing." The butler, Pierre, glided among them with a tray of drinks, his face impassive, his movements economical. Poirot accepted a vermouth, noting the man's steady hands and the faint air of resignation about him, as if he carried the weight of unspoken burdens. As the sun began its descent, conversation flowed like the wine. Madame Dupont regaled them with tales of Nice's glittering social scene, while Henri grumbled about the extravagance of it all. Claire and Victor exchanged glances filled with youthful promise, and Sophie interjected occasional pious remarks. Hastings, ever the genial host, steered the talk toward lighter matters. Poirot listened, his green eyes alert beneath hooded lids. There was harmony here, but beneath it, subtle discords. A flicker of annoyance in Henri's eyes when his wife laughed too freely, a possessive tighten of Victor's arm around Claire, Sophie's sidelong glances at the family jewels adorning Elise. And the Moonstone legend, mentioned in passing, hung in the air like a tantalizing mist. That evening, the party gathered in the dining room, where candlelight danced on silver and crystal. Madame Dupont, resplendent in a gown of emerald green that matched the necklace at her throat, raised her glass at the head of the table. "To our distinguished guest, Monsieur Poirot, and to the enduring glow of the Moonstone, may it bring us all good fortune." The toast was echoed, glasses clinked, and the meal proceeded with French finesse. Delicate soups, succulent fish from the local markets, wines that sang on the palate. Laughter punctuated the courses, but Poirot's acute senses detected undercurrents, whispers between Claire and Victor about future plans, Henri's curt dismissal of a servant's minor error, Sophie's murmured prayer before eating. As coffee was served, the sun had fully set, the sea a dark void beyond the windows. The group retired to the salon for liqueurs, the atmosphere relaxed, yet charged with that indefinable Riviera glamour. Little did they suspect that the night's tranquility was but a fragile veneer. It was well past midnight when the scream shattered the silence, a high, piercing cry that echoed through the villa's corridors. Poirot, who slept lightly as a cat, was out of his bed in an instant, wrapping himself in a silk dressing gown. He hurried toward the source, his slippered feet silent on the tiles. Hastings joined him moments later, disheveled and alarmed. "Good Lord, Poirot! What was that?" "The master bedroom, I believe," Poirot replied, his voice calm but urgent. They burst into the room to find chaos. Lamps overturned, curtains billowing in the night breeze from an open window. On the floor, amid shards of glass, lay Madame Elise Dupont, her face contorted in agony, one hand clutching a broken vial. The scent of perfume mingled with a sharper, bitter odor. Almonds, unmistakable to Poirot's trained nose. "Mon Dieu," he whispered, kneeling beside her. No pulse, no breath. Death had come swiftly. The others arrived in a rush. Henri, pale and stumbling. Claire, stifling a sob. Victor, supporting her. Sophie, crossing herself. Pierre, hovering in the doorway with a lantern. Hastings checked for signs of life, then shook his head. "She's gone. Poisoned by the look of it." Within the hour, the local police had been summoned. Inspector Giraud, a portly man with a mustache that aspired to rival Poirot's but fell short, surveyed the scene with officious bluster. A tragic suicide, clearly. The vial, her own perfume, no doubt laced with despair. Women of a certain age. Poirot's eyes narrowed. He examined the vial carefully, noting its elegant design, the residue within. Suicide, Inspector? Perhaps, but consider, the scream was one of surprise, not resignation. And the odor, cyanide, oui, but how did it enter the perfume? No, my friend, this is murder most calculated. Giraud snorted. Nonsense. We'll see what the autopsy says. As the body was removed and the room sealed, Poirot turned to Hastings in the dim hallway. The game begins, mon ami. In this villa of beauty, evil has taken root. We must unearth it before it spreads. Chapter 2. The Shadows of Suspicion. The first light of dawn crept over the Mediterranean like a thief, casting a pale glow on the Moonstone villa. The previous night's horror had left its mark. The once vibrant terrace now seemed shrouded in melancholy, the bougainvillea drooping as if in mourning. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the early hour, stood at the window of his guest room, his hands clasped behind his back. Sleep had eluded him, his little gray cells whirring like a well-oiled machine. The scream, the almond scent, the crumpled form of Madame Dupont, all pieces of a puzzle that demanded assembly. Downstairs, the household stirred uneasily. Captain Hastings, rubbing his eyes, joined Poirot in the corridor. Dreadful business, Poirot. I hardly closed my eyes. Do you really think it's murder? Poirot nodded gravely. Without doubt, mon ami. Suicide? Bah, Madame Dupont was a woman of vitality, not despair. The poison was administered with cunning, through her perfume, a ritual she performed each evening before bed. The killer knew her intimately. They descended to the drawing room, where Inspector Giraud had set up his impromptu headquarters. The inspector, his uniform slightly rumpled from the night's haste, paced before an assembled group of suspects. The room, with its plush armchairs and ornate mirrors, reflected the tense faces. Henri Dupont, slumped in a corner with a glass of brandy already in hand. Claire, pale but composed, her fingers twisting a handkerchief. Victor Lange, standing protectively beside her, his artistic features drawn tight. Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand, seated bolt upright, her lips moving in silent prayer. And Pierre, the butler, hovering at the periphery with a tray of coffee, his expression inscrutable. Giraud cleared his throat importantly. Mesdames et messieurs, this is a grave matter. Madame Dupont's death appears self-inflicted, but we must rule out foul play. I shall question each of you in turn. Monsieur Dupont, you first. Henri set down his glass with a clink. What is there to say? Elise retired early, complaining of a headache. I was in my study until midnight, reviewing investments. I heard nothing until the scream. Giraud jotted notes. And your marriage? Happy? Henri's eyes flashed. As happy as any after 20 years. We had our disagreements, money mostly. Elise spent freely. Poirot, lounging against the mantelpiece, interjected softly. Pardon, Inspector, but might we inquire about the will? In such cases, it is often illuminating. Giraud scowled but nodded. Henri sighed. Elise's fortune came from her family. The villa and bulk of the estate go to Claire. I receive a stipend, enough for comfort. Sophie, as cousin, gets a small legacy. Claire's voice trembled. Father, please, Mother wouldn't have. She loved life too much. Victor squeezed her shoulder. It's monstrous to suggest otherwise. Sophie spoke up, her tone clipped. Indeed, Elise was devout in her way, but suicide is a sin. Perhaps an accident? Pierre circulated with the coffee, his hands steady. Poirot accepted a cup, his eyes fixed on the butler. You, Pierre, how long have you served here? 25 years, monsieur, since Madame was a bride. And last evening, you prepared her room as usual? Oui, turned down the bed, set out her night things, including the perfume on the dressing table. Giraud dismissed him curtly. That will do for now. As the questioning continued, Poirot observed the subtle interplay. Claire admitted to a minor quarrel with her mother over wedding plans. Madame Dupont had favored a grand affair, while Claire preferred simplicity. But it was nothing serious, she insisted. Victor, when his turn came, shifted uncomfortably. I was with Claire in the garden after dinner. We heard the scream together. Giraud pressed. Your finances, Monsieur Lange? An artist, not always lucrative. Victor's cheeks flushed. I manage. Claire's happiness is my concern, not her inheritance. Sophie, questioned last, folded her hands primly. I retired early to read my Bible. Elise and I spoke briefly about family matters, the old stories of the Moonstone. She seemed preoccupied. With the formalities concluded, Giraud declared a break. The doctor will confirm cause of death soon. Until then, no one leaves the villa. Poirot drew Hastings aside to the terrace. Observe, Hastings. Each has a motive, however veiled. Henri resents his dependence. Claire chafes under maternal control. Victor eyes the fortune. Sophie harbors old grudges. Even Pierre might seek revenge for years of servitude. Hastings nodded eagerly. The husband, surely. That scowl. He's hiding something. Poirot smiled enigmatically. Perhaps, but let us probe deeper. He sought out Pierre in the pantry, where the butler polished silver with mechanical precision. The room smelled of beeswax and lemon, a sanctuary of order amid chaos. Pierre, a word. The perfume. You decanted it yourself? The butler paused, his cloth stilling. Oui, monsieur. from the large bottle in the storeroom. Madame preferred it, fresh each night. Poirot examined a similar vial on the shelf. This one, intact, but the fatal one bore a scratch on the stopper, as if forced. Pierre's face paled slightly. I noticed nothing amiss. And the argument I overheard yesterday? Raised voices in the kitchen. Pierre hesitated. A trifling matter. Madame accused me of carelessness with the accounts. She threatened to dismiss me. Poirot's eyebrows rose. Ah, and your loyalty? Unwavering, monsieur, but times are hard. Leaving the pantry, Poirot rejoined the group for a subdued luncheon in the dining room. The meal, cold meats, salads, fresh bread, passed in near silence, the clink of cutlery echoing like accusations. Henri drank more than he ate, his eyes bloodshot. Claire picked at her food, Victor murmuring encouragements. Sophie ate methodically, her gaze darting suspiciously. Afterward, Poirot proposed a walk in the gardens to clear the mind. Hastings accompanied him down the terraced paths, where lavender scented the air and bees hummed lazily. What next, Poirot? We search for clues the police overlook. Giraud is competent, but lacks imagination. Near the cliff edge, where the path wound perilously close to the drop, Poirot's sharp eyes spotted something anomalous. A lady's glove, half buried in the gravel, its fine leather stained with a faint, oily residue. He retrieved it carefully with a handkerchief. Hastings, regardez, this is not discarded carelessly, and the stain, perhaps chemical. Hastings examined it. Sophie's or Claire's? It could have been dropped during a nocturnal rendezvous. Poirot pocketed it. We shall see, but it suggests the killer ventured out last night, perhaps to dispose of evidence. Returning to the villa, they encountered Victor sketching alone in the arbor. He started at their approach. Gentlemen, seeking inspiration in nature? Poirot nodded. And you, Monsieur Lange? Your art, does it include chemistry, pigments, varnishes? Victor laughed uneasily. Of course. Why do you ask? Merely a thought. The poison, cyanide, common in some artists' supplies, non? Victor's pencil snapped. Absurd. I would never. Poirot waved dismissively. Of course not. Bonne journée. As afternoon waned, tension thickened like gathering clouds. Claire confided in Poirot during a private moment in the library. Monsieur, I'm frightened. Mother mentioned odd letters recently. Anonymous, threatening exposure of some secret. Poirot's interest piqued. What secret? She wouldn't say, but she laughed it off, calling it jealousy. Meanwhile, Hastings shadowed Henri, who slipped into town under pretense of errands, returning with a furtive air. Sophie, in her room, pored over yellowed letters, her door ajar just enough for observation. By evening, the doctor's report arrived via telegram. Death by cyanide poisoning, ingested through the skin via the perfume. No signs of struggle, but the dose lethal within minutes. Giraud convened everyone again. This strengthens the suicide theory. She applied it herself. Poirot rose. Non, Inspector, consider. The vial was tampered with earlier. The scratch, the glove, evidence of premeditation. Giraud huffed. Speculation. Produce proof. Poirot smiled. In time. For now, let us dine. Hunger sharpens the wits. The evening meal was a strained affair, suspicions casting long shadows. Conversation lagged, each glance laden with accusation. As night fell, Poirot retired, but not to sleep. He paced his room, arranging facts like cards in a solitaire game. Hastings knocked softly. Any progress? The web tightens, mon ami. Motives entwine, greed, jealousy, revenge. But the method, feminine, subtle, yet any could wield it. Outside, the sea whispered secrets, the Moonstone legend lingering like a ghost. The villa held its breath, awaiting the next revelation. Chapter 3. Whispers from the Past. The sun climbed higher over the Côte d'Azur, its rays piercing the villa's shutters like inquisitive fingers. Hercule Poirot, having breakfasted lightly on croissants and café au lait, requested permission from Inspector Giraud to conduct private interviews. The inspector, begrudgingly acknowledging Poirot's reputation, acquiesced with a wave of his hand. "Very well, but report any findings to me. This is French soil, after all." Poirot chose the library for his interrogations, a room redolent of aged leather and forgotten lore, its walls lined with books on gemology, Riviera history, and faded family chronicles. Sunlight filtered through heavy drapes, casting motes of dust and golden beams. He settled into a high-backed chair, his notebook at the ready, while Hastings stood by as silent witness, his face a mask of earnest concentration. First came Monsieur Henri Dupont. The banker entered with the air of a man attending an unwelcome board meeting, his suit impeccably tailored, but his tie askew, betraying inner turmoil. He sank into the opposite seat, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. "Monsieur Dupont," Poirot began mildly, "let us speak frankly. Your marriage to Madame Elise, was it as harmonious as you claim?" Henri exhaled a plume of smoke. What marriage is without storms? Elise was spirited. She loved society, parties, the whirl of Nice. I preferred quiet, my ledgers, but we respected each other. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And finances? You mentioned her extravagance. Did it strain your resources?" Henri shifted. "Somewhat. The villa upkeep is ruinous, but her inheritance covered it. Now—" He trailed off, staring at the carpet. "You were in your study last night," Poirot pressed. "Yet a gardener saw a figure resembling you near the terrace after midnight. Care to explain?" Henri's face reddened. "I stepped out for air. The scream drew me back." Poirot noted the evasion, but let it pass for now. "The Moonstone legend, does it hold truth?" Henri shrugged. "Family myth. Elise's great-grandfather supposedly hid it during the Revolution. Worth a fortune, if real. Elise searched occasionally, but fruitlessly." Dismissed, Henri left with a curt nod. Poirot turned to Hastings. "He conceals much, that one. Jealousy, perhaps, of his wife's freedoms." Claire Dupont entered next, her steps hesitant, her eyes red-rimmed from unshed tears. She wore a simple black dress, accentuating her pallor. Poirot rose gallantly, offering her a seat. "Mademoiselle Claire, my condolences. Your mother, she disapproved of Monsieur Lange?" Claire nodded, dabbing at her eyes. "She thought him unsuitable, a dreamer without means. But Victor loves me, not my money. And the will, you inherit principally." "Yes, but I never wished her harm. We argued, yes, about the wedding, my independence. Mother was protective, almost possessive." Poirot leaned forward. "The anonymous letters your mother mentioned, did she show them to you?" Claire hesitated. "One, briefly. It accused her of hiding something from the family. She burned it, laughing it off as spite." "From whom, do you think?" "Perhaps Sophie. They had old quarrels over inheritance." Poirot probed further. "You walk the gardens often. Did you notice anything unusual yesterday?" "Only Victor sketching by the cliffs. He seemed agitated." As Claire departed, Poirot murmured to Hastings, "The daughter is clever, but grief masks secrets. Now, the artist." Victor Lange strode in, his bohemian scarf fluttering, a sketchbook under his arm. He sat with forced nonchalance, crossing his legs. "Monsieur Lange," Poirot said, "your talents extend to chemistry, oui? For paints, solvents." Victor smiled thinly. "Essential for my work." "Why?" "Cyanide, used in some pigments, or easily procured by one knowledgeable." Victor's smile faded. "You're accusing me?" "Merely observing. Your debts, they are substantial?" Victor glanced away. "Artists struggle, but Claire knows. We've planned to elope if needed." Poirot produced the stained glove from his pocket. "This, found near the cliffs. Yours?" Victor examined it. "No, too small. A woman's, perhaps. And your alibi, with Claire in the garden. But she mentioned you seemed agitated. Why?" "A creative block, nothing more." Poirot dismissed him thoughtfully. The fiancé protests innocence, but his eyes betray fear. Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand followed, her footsteps prim and measured. She perched on the chair's edge, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began, "you and Madame Dupont, cousins, yet distant in affection?" Sophie sniffed. "Distant in more than blood. Elise's branch claimed the bulk of the estate after our aunt's death. I received crumbs. Bitter crumbs, perhaps. I forgave long ago. Christian duty." Poirot's tone sharpened. "Your alibi, praying alone. No witnesses?" "God is my witness. The glove, mademoiselle." He held it up. "Initials inside. S.B." Sophie's color drained. "Mine? Impossible. I lost one weeks ago." "Convenient. And the Moonstone. You believe it yours by right?" Her eyes flashed. "Elise taunted me with it. Said it was hidden to prevent greedy hands. But I sought peace, not gems." As she left, Poirot confided in Hastings. "Revenge simmers there, mon ami. Old wounds fester." Last came Pierre, the butler, entering with deferential bow, his uniform spotless despite the chaos. "Pierre," Poirot said, 25 years of service. Loyalty or resentment?" "Loyalty, monsieur. Madame was exacting, but fair." "The argument over accounts, what precisely?" Pierre sighed. "Discrepancies in household expenses. She accused me of padding bills." "Untrue. I managed as best I could with her economies." Poirot noted the calluses on his hands. "You garden in your spare time?" "Oui, for relaxation." "And last night, mud on your shoes this morning?" "From where?" Pierre faltered. "A late walk, insomnia." "The storeroom, where the perfume bottle was kept, locked?" "Usually, but yesterday the key was misplaced." Poirot leaned back. "Merci, Pierre. That is all." With interviews concluded, Poirot and Hastings strolled the library, examining shelves. Hastings pulled a volume on gems. "Look here, notes in the margin about the Moonstone's hiding spots. Elise's handwriting?" Poirot scanned it. "Possible clues. Beneath the guardian cypress, where waves meet stone. The killer may seek it too." Afternoon brought a discovery. In Madame Dupont's desk, hidden in a secret drawer, a smudged letter. "My dearest," it read, "our secret must remain buried like the stone. Meet me at midnight." The signature blurred. "H? V?" Hastings exclaimed. "An affair, Henri's. Or another's. It explains the threats." They confronted Giraud in the drawing room, where he pored over reports. "This letter, evidence of intrigue." Giraud grunted. "Lovers' quarrel, leading to suicide." Poirot shook his head. "No, the killer used it to manipulate." As evening approached, whispers of the past echoed louder. Claire confided finding a similar note in Victor's studio. Henri admitted late-night meetings with a business associate. Sophie recalled childhood slights. Pierre revealed overhearing Elise plotting to change her will. Dinner was tense, served under Pierre's watchful eye. Henri drank heavily, Claire and Victor argued in hushed tones. Sophie prayed audibly. Poirot observed, his mind weaving threads. Later, in the garden under stars, Hastings pondered. "It's tangled, Poirot. Everyone has secrets." "Precisely, but patterns emerge. The glove links to Sophie, the chemicals to Victor, the finances to Henri, the service to Pierre, the inheritance to Claire. Yet one thread binds them." The sea murmured below, carrying echoes of bygone scandals. The villa's shadows deepened, pregnant with revelations yet to come. Chapter 4. The Tide of Clues. The azure sky above Nice held a deceptive serenity as Hercule Poirot awaited the police chemist's report in the villa's sunlit conservatory. Glass walls enclosed a profusion of exotic plants, orchids nodding in the yaw, breeze from open vents, palms casting intricate shadows on the tiled floor. Inspector Giraud arrived mid-morning, brandishing a sheaf of papers with the triumph of a conqueror. "Here it is, Monsieur Poirot, potassium cyanide, without question, mixed into the perfume base, absorbed through the skin upon application. A swift end." Poirot examined the document closely, his manicured fingers tracing the chemical analysis. "Easily obtained, you say? From photographic supplies, laboratories, even artists' studios?" Giraud nodded. "Common enough in certain circles, but suicide remains plausible. No forced entry, no struggle." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Ah, but regard the bottle itself." He produced the original perfume flacon from evidence, wrapped in cloth. Under a magnifying glass borrowed from the library, faint traces of adhesive gleamed on the label's edge. "Glue, Inspector. The label was removed and reaffixed, perhaps to conceal a substitution." Giraud peered skeptically. "Or a manufacturing flaw. You're building castles in the air." "Non, mon ami. Castles with foundations of fact. The killer switched the contents earlier, knowing Madame's routine." Leaving Giraud to mull, Poirot sought Hastings for a constitutional along the Promenade des Anglais. The famous walkway bustled with strollers, fashionable ladies in wide-brimmed hats, vendors hawking ice creams, the sea lapping rhythmically against the pebble beach below. Poirot, in his neat suit and Homburg hat, walked with measured steps, cane tapping the pavement. "Hastings," he said, pausing to admire a yacht bobbing in the bay. "The killer is ingenious, employing the villa's legend as camouflage. The Moonstone distracts, like a magician's flourish, yet it may hold a kernel of truth. Greed often intertwines with murder." Hastings mopped his brow. "But who benefits most? Claire, surely, with the inheritance?" Poirot chuckled. "All benefit in their ways. We must watch the tides of behavior. They reveal much." Back at the Moonstone villa by luncheon, the atmosphere crackled with unspoken accusations. The meal, grilled sea bass, crisp salads, chilled rosé, should have been delightful, but appetites waned. Henri Dupont, his face flushed from morning brandy, stabbed at his fish with undue force. Claire, seated beside Victor, suddenly set down her fork with a clatter. "Victor," she said sharply, her voice carrying across the table, "where were you really last afternoon? I saw you speaking intimately with that gallery owner in town, Madame Lefebvre. Don't deny it. Pierre mentioned your errand." Victor paled, his fork midway to his mouth. "Claire, darling, it's business. She's interested in my work, nothing more. Business that requires whispers and laughter. Mother warned me about your wandering eye." The quarrel escalated, voices rising until Henri slammed his glass down. "Enough! This house is in mourning, not a music hall." Sophie, observing with pursed lips, interjected piously. Such discord invites the devil. Elise would be ashamed. Pierre, serving discreetly, vanished midway through the meal, reappearing later with faint mud smears on his polished shoes. Poirot noted it silently, his eyes narrowing. Post-luncheon, the group dispersed uneasily. Henri retreated to his study with a fresh decanter, the door closing firmly. Sophie ensconced herself in the library, poring over ancient family diaries bound in cracked leather, her spectacles perched on her nose as she muttered annotations. Poirot, ever the orchestrator, proposed a reconstruction of the fatal evening's events. To clarify movements, mes amis, Inspector Giraud agrees it may illuminate discrepancies. Giraud, present with a constable, grumbled assent. The group assembled in the dining room at the approximate hour, candles lit to mimic the ambiance. Pierre served phantom courses, his face impassive. Commence, Poirot directed. Madame Dupont. Alas, we imagine her at the head. They reenacted, toasts raised, conversations simulated. Victor, playing himself, excused himself early, claiming a sudden malaise. I went to the terrace for air, he said, exiting as before. Sophie lingered after the others rose, fussing with her napkin near the corridor to the bedrooms. I merely collected my shawl, she explained. Henri retired to his study promptly. Claire and Victor, post-quarrel in this timeline, strolled the garden path. Pierre cleared the table methodically. Poirot halted the scene. Observe, Victor's departure allows access to the storeroom via the side door. Sophie passes the master suite. Pierre handles the dishes but could detour. Giraud snorted. Speculation. Everyone had opportunity. Opportunity, yes, Poirot agreed, but paired with motive and means, that is the key. As twilight deepened, the reconstruction dissolved into uneasy chatter. Poirot examined the storeroom anew, shelves of linens, cleaning supplies, the large perfume reservoir. A faint residue in the basin suggested recent washing, perhaps to erase traces. Evening brought a chill wind from the sea, rattling the villa's shutters. The group gathered in the salon for aperitifs, tension palpable. Claire, still simmering, accepted tea from Pierre with a nod. Poirot, seated nearby, watched as she raised the cup to her lips. A whiff, subtle, but to Poirot's acute senses, unmistakable. Almonds again. Non! He cried, knocking the cup from her hand. It shattered on the floor, tea spilling in a dark pool. Claire gasped. What? Poison, mademoiselle, the same as your mother's. Pandemonium ensued. Giraud summoned his men. The tea was tested hastily with a field kit. Cyanide confirmed. Attempted murder, the inspector bellowed. Who prepared this? Pierre stepped forward, ashen. I did, Inspector, from the kitchen pot, but I served everyone the same. Examination revealed the cup itself tainted, a residue smeared inside. The killer struck opportunistically, Poirot deduced, targeting Claire now. Why? Claire trembled in Victor's arms. The inheritance? If I die, it reverts to father or Sophie. Henri protested vehemently. Absurd. I love my daughter. Sophie crossed herself. This is madness, the curse of the Moonstone. Victor soothed Claire, but his eyes darted suspiciously. Poirot conferred privately with Giraud. The killer grows desperate, fearing exposure. We must guard all food and drink. Guards were posted. The household retired under watch. Poirot, in his room, paced before the window, the moon casting silvery light on the waves below. Hastings knocked softly. Poirot, this second attempt? It narrows the field? Oui. The poisoner had access to the salon moments before serving. Victor was absent briefly. Sophie adjusted the cushions. Henri poured his own brandy. Pierre handled the tray. And the mud on Pierre's shoes? From digging, perhaps seeking the Moonstone, or burying evidence. Midnight brought no further incident, but sleep evaded most. Dawn revealed another clue. A discarded syringe in the garden hedge, traces of cyanide within. The means of injection into the perfume? Poirot examined it with tweezers. Medical, or from a laboratory? Giraud traced its origin, similar to those in Victor's studio, used for thinning paints. Confronted, Victor blustered. "Anyone could have taken it. My door isn't locked." Tension mounted through the day. Claire searched her mother's papers, uncovering a draft will reducing Victor's prospects. Henri admitted financial woes deeper than admitted, debts from failed investments. Sophie confessed researching cyanide for rat control in her provincial home. Pierre revealed overhearing Elise threatening to expose Victor's forged artworks. Poirot assembled fragments, the glued label, the stained glove, the smudged letter, the muddied shoes, the syringe. The tide rises, Hastings, carrying clues ashore, but the wave of truth approaches. As evening fell, the sea's roar seemed to echo the villa's unrest, the killer's desperation palpable in every shadow. Chapter 5. Echoes of Deception. The relentless sun of the Riviera beat down on the Moonstone villa, turning the terraced gardens into a shimmering haze. Inside, the air hung heavy with suspicion, each creak of the floorboards amplifying the unease. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the heat, had deepened his inquiries, summoning each suspect for further probing in the seclusion of the conservatory. The glass enclosure, filled with the humid scent of ferns and blooming jasmine, provided a fitting backdrop. Transparent yet confining, much like the web of lies he sought to unravel. Inspector Giraud, though officially in charge, had tacitly yielded the floor to Poirot, contenting himself with occasional interjections from a wicker chair in the corner. Captain Hastings, ever faithful, took notes diligently, his pencil scratching like an insistent insect. Victor Lang was first, summoned from his makeshift studio in the annex. He entered, wiping paint from his hands, his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms smudged with color. Poirot gestured to a seat amid the potted palms. "Monsieur Lange," Poirot began, his voice silky, "let us dispense with pretenses. Your debts, they are not mere artistic hardships, are they? Creditors hound you, and marriage to Mademoiselle Claire offers salvation." Victor sat rigidly, his charm cracking. "What of it? Many artists struggle. I haven't hidden it from Claire." Poirot's eyes bored into him. "But from Madame Dupont? She discovered something more damning, no? A forgery, perhaps. A painting passed off as a masterwork to settle those debts." Victor's defiance crumbled. He ran a hand through his hair, leaving a streak of blue. "How did you—" "Yes, all right. I copied a minor impressionist to pay off a loan shark. Elise found out, threatened to expose me, ruin my reputation, but I begged her mercy. She relented, on condition I prove myself worthy of Claire." "A strong motive," Poirot mused. "Exposure would end your prospects." Victor leaned forward earnestly. "I swear I didn't kill her. I loved her like family." Dismissed, Victor slunk away. Poirot turned to Hastings. "The artist confesses partially, but holds back. Note the syringe from his studio, ideal for precise poisoning." Claire Dupont followed, her composure a fragile shell. She carried a small reticule, clutching it like a talisman. Poirot offered her iced lemonade, which she accepted with a wan smile. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "you have been forthright, but secrets linger. The Moonstone. You have located it, have you not?" Claire's glass trembled. "How could you know? Yes, weeks ago, in the cellar behind a loose stone. Mother always said it was lost, but I followed clues from her diaries. It's real, a flawless blue diamond, worth millions." "And your intent?" She met his gaze steadily. "To sell it quietly, gain independence. Mother controlled everything, my choices, my future. With Victor I saw escape, but she opposed us. The gem was my key to freedom." Poirot nodded sympathetically. "Did she suspect your discovery?" "Perhaps. She mentioned tightening the will lately." As Claire departed, Giraud harumphed. "Greed, then. The daughter poisons to secure her find." Poirot shook his head. "Patience, Inspector. Echoes of deception resonate from all." Henri Dupont lumbered in next, his breath carrying the faint tang of cognac. He collapsed into the chair, mopping his brow with a monogrammed handkerchief. "Monsieur Dupont," Poirot queried, "the smudged letter from your wife's desk, addressed to a paramour. Yours, I believe." Henri's jowls quivered. "Yes, damn it. To Marie in Paris. A brief folly years ago. Elise knew. She intercepted it but forgave me. We moved past it. Yet the anonymous threats referenced secrets. Jealousy reignited." Henri pounded the armrest. "No, I was faithful after. Those letters were spite from elsewhere. Perhaps Sophie, stirring old pots." Poirot probed. "Your finances, deeper woes than admitted? Investments soured, the villa mortgaged?" Henri deflated. "True, Elise's fortune kept us afloat. Without her, but I'd never harm her." Released, Henri shuffled out. Hastings whispered, "The husband, classic culprit, motive aplenty." "Indeed," Poirot agreed, "but observe the layers." Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand arrived, her black attire absorbing the light like a void. She sat primly, rosary beads clicking in her fingers. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said, "your diaries, borrowed discreetly, reveal a bitter rivalry. Elise cheated you of inheritance decades ago, claiming undue share after your aunt's death." Sophie's lips thinned. "How dare you pry?" "Yes, it's true. Aunt intended equal division, but Elise manipulated the will with forged codicils. I was left penniless, forced into drudgery while she luxuriated here." "Vengeance simmers long," Poirot observed. "The glove, yours, stained with residue, and cyanide purchases under an alias, traced to Nice pharmacies." Sophie's eyes widened. "For vermin in my cottage. The glove, I lost it. Someone planted it." "The Moonstone. You believe it rightfully yours?" "Absolutely. Elise hid it to spite me. But murder? I'd not damn my soul." Her denial rang hollow as she left. Giraud smirked. "The cousin. Revenge is sweet poison." Poirot concurred partially. "Her grudge is potent." Pierre the butler was last, entering with the deference of habit. His uniform remained impeccable, but fatigue etched lines around his eyes. "Pierre," Poirot intoned, "under pressure, you confess minor thefts, padding accounts, pocketing trifles." Pierre bowed his head. "Oui, monsieur, small sums over years, to support my ailing sister. Madame discovered recently, threatened dismissal, but I begged forgiveness. She agreed to silence if I reformed." "And the mud on your shoes, diggin' for the Moonstone?" Pierre sighed. "Guilty. Overhearing talks, I searched the grounds, hoping a find would earn favor or reward. Found nothing but roots." "The syringe. Could you access Victor's studio?" "Easily, in my duties." Pierre swore innocence vehemently before departing. Alone with Hastings and Giraud, Poirot paced amid the greenery. "The puzzle assembles," he declared. "The glove, Sophie's, but perhaps borrowed. The vial scratch matches a palette knife from Victor's tools. Pierre's mud leads to a hidden cache in the garden, empty but recently disturbed. Henri's letter, a distraction. Claire's gem, the prize." Hastings urged, "Arrest them all, Poirot. Each has guilt written plain." Poirot chuckled softly. "Ah, Hastings, ever the enthusiast. But no, patience. The gray cells synthesize. Echoes of deception bounce. But one voice rings true in falsehood." Giraud demanded, "Who then?" Poirot held up a hand. "Not yet. We must test the waters." Afternoon brought contrived encounters. Poirot accidentally revealed to Victor the syringe's discovery, watching his panic. To Claire, he hinted at the will's draft, noting her relief. Henri, confronted with debt ledgers unearthed from his study, blustered denials. Sophie, shown her diary entries, wept crocodile tears. Pierre, accused of the cache, produced alibis from servants. Evening descended with a thunderstorm brewing over the sea, lightning flickering like accusatory fingers. The household dined in silence, rain pattering against windows. Poirot observed alliances fracture. Claire eyed Victor warily. Henri avoided Sophie's gaze. Pierre served with mechanical detachment. Post-dinner, in the salon, Poirot orchestrated a subtle trap. "A thought," he announced casually. "The Moonstone, perhaps hidden in plain sight. Tomorrow, a full search." Reactions varied. Claire's flicker of alarm, Victor's greed glint, Henri's indifference, Sophie's avarice, Pierre's resignation. Retiring, Poirot confided in Hastings. "The deceptions echo, but clarity nears. The killer, cornered, may strike again." Guards patrolled. Thunder rumbled. In the dead of night, a shadow slipped through corridors, but Poirot's vigilance. A hidden bell pull alerted him. No incident occurred, but suspicions crystallized. Dawn broke clear. The storm passed. Poirot, refreshed, pieced final connections. The glue from Henri's desk supplies, the anonymous letters in Sophie's script, the perfume switch during Pierre's distraction. "The mosaic forms," he told Hastings over coffee. "Greed, jealousy, revenge, interwoven. But one hand pulls the strings." Giraud joined them, eager. "Your deduction?" "Soon. Assemble all this evening. The truth will resound." The day dragged, tensions simmering. Whispers of the past morphed into present accusations, deceptions unraveling like frayed threads. The villa, once a haven, now a stage for revelation. Chapter 6. The Moonstone's Revelation. The gathering storm that had threatened the previous evening had broken at last, unleashing a torrent upon the Moonstone villa. Rain lashed the windows of the drawing room like accusing fingers, while thunder rolled over the Mediterranean, echoing the turmoil within. Hercule Poirot had orchestrated this assembly with his customary precision, insisting that all suspects, servants, and officials convene at precisely 8 o'clock. The room, illuminated by the soft glow of lamps to counter the gloom outside, held an air of expectancy. Velvet curtains framed the tempestuous sea below, waves crashing against the cliffs in rhythmic fury, as if nature itself demanded resolution. Inspector Giraud stood by the fireplace, his chest puffed with anticipated glory, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of resentment toward the diminutive Belgian who had commandeered the investigation. Captain Hastings hovered nearby, his face a mixture of excitement and apprehension, notebook at the ready. The suspects filed in one by one. Henri Dupont, disheveled and nursing a tumbler of brandy. Claire, her elegance marred by dark circles under her eyes, clinging to Victor, Lange's arm, Victor himself, his artistic poise frayed, glancing nervously about. Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand, rigid and composed, her rosary a constant companion, and Pierre, the butler, who took his place unobtrusively by the door, his expression as blank as a fresh canvas. Poirot positioned himself center stage before the grand piano that gleamed under the chandelier. He adjusted his cuffs with deliberate care, allowing the silence to build like the pressure before a thunderclap. Mesdames et messieurs, he began at last, his voice resonant despite its mild tone. We come to the denouement. The tragic death of Madame Elise Dupont was no act of despair, no mere accident of fate. It was murder, cold, calculated, and cloaked in the intimacy of daily ritual. The poison, cyanide, introduced into her cherished perfume, struck swiftly as she prepared for bed. But why? And by whom? The gray cells of Hercule Poirot have pondered these questions, sifting through the sands of deception to unearth the truth. He paced slowly, his patent leather shoes clicking on the parquet floor. Let us review the motives, for in every soul here shadows lurk. Monsieur Henri Dupont, you, the husband, chafed under your wife's financial dominance. Your investments failed, debts mounted, and her extravagance mocked your prudence. The anonymous letters stirring old jealousies. Perhaps you feared exposure of your past indiscretion, or worse, her intent to alter the will in favor of charity. Henri spluttered, brandy spilling. Lies. I loved Elise, despite our differences. Poirot raised a hand. Patience. Mademoiselle Claire, you discovered the Moonstone, that fabled gem hidden in the cellar. A fortune at your fingertips, promising freedom from maternal oversight. But Madame planned to donate it to a museum, thwarting your dreams of independence with Victor. And the second attempt on your life? A feint, perhaps, to divert suspicion. Claire gasped, her hand flying to her throat. Monstrous! I adored Mother. Victor interjected fiercely. She's innocent. Poirot turned to him. Ah, Monsieur Lange, the charming artist, your debts strangled you, and Madame's discovery of your forgery threatened ruin. You tampered with the vial, using your studio chemicals, cyanide from pigments, the syringe for precision. The scratch on the stopper matches your tools, and your absence during the reconstruction provided opportunity. Victor's face drained of color. I handled supplies, yes, but not for murder. Poirot continued relentlessly. Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand, revenge burns in you like an eternal flame. Cheated of inheritance by Elise's machinations years ago, you simmered in resentment. The glove, monogrammed with your initials, stained with residue, cyanide procured under an alias, your diaries coded with plans of retribution. And the Moonstone, you believed it yours, hidden to spite you eternally. Sophie's composure cracked, her beads clicking faster. Vengeance? I sought justice, but not through sin. Finally, Poirot addressed Pierre. And you, faithful Pierre, 25 years of service masked growing bitterness. Minor thefts exposed, dismissal loomed. You aided in small ways, misplacing keys, distracting during the switch for a promised share of spoils. The mud on your shoes from nocturnal digs, seeking the gem for leverage. Pierre shook his head vehemently. Service, monsieur, not betrayal. The room fell silent, save for the rain's relentless drum. Giraud shifted impatiently. Well, Poirot, accuse one, or admit defeat. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Defeat? No. The truth reveals itself like the moon emerging from clouds. All have motives, opportunities, but one wove the web. The killer is cunning, using the villa's legend as veil, the perfume as weapon, a method subtle, feminine, yet accessible to all. He paused dramatically, lightning illuminating his features. Consider the clues anew. The glued label on the perfume bottle, residue from Henri's desk adhesives, the smudged letter, penned in Sophie's precise script, the syringe from Victor's studio, Pierre's disturbed cache in the garden, Claire's hidden gem. But these are echoes, misdirections planted to confuse. Hastings leaned forward. Then who, Poirot? Poirot whirled. The true culprit is Mademoiselle Sophie Bertrand. She orchestrated the crime with meticulous care. Motive: not mere inheritance, but profound betrayal. Elise had confided, mockingly perhaps, that the Moonstone was re-hidden recently, in a spot only she knew, to prevent Sophie's greedy claws. Sophie, overhearing or deducing, searched frantically that night, digging in vain, her rage ignited. Sophie stiffened. Preposterous, Poirot pressed on. The evidence, your glove, discarded near the cliffs after handling the poison. The stain, chemical analysis confirms cyanide traces. The purchase, traced to a pharmacy in Nice, your alias, Madame Berthe, verified by the clerk's description. Your diaries, coded entries, ease vanity her downfall, scent of almonds for the thief. The scratch on the vial? From your rosary crucifix, used to pry the stopper, microscopic enamel flecks match. Giraud's eyes widened. But the others' involvements? Misdirections, Poirot explained. Sophie planted the syringe in the hedge, knowing Victor's habits. She forged the letter in Henri's style, stirring chaos. She whispered to Pierre of the gem's location, prompting his digs. Even the second attempt on Claire, tea tainted during a moment's distraction in the salon, to implicate others and secure the estate's reversion to kin. Claire whispered, "Why me?" "To eliminate rivals," Poirot said. "With you gone, and suspicion on Victor or Henri, Sophie, as next kin, claims all, including time to hunt the Moonstone undisturbed." Sophie rose, her face a mask of fury. "You have no proof." Poirot produced a small envelope. "Ah, but I do. Fibers from your shawl caught in the storeroom lock. And this? A vial fragment from your room's waste bin, testing positive for cyanide residue. You practiced the mixture." Defeated, Sophie collapsed into her chair, sobs racking her frame. "She ruined me, took everything, Aunt's fortune, the gem. I came for reconciliation, but her taunts? I switched the essence that afternoon, while all were distracted. The Moonstone was mine by right." Giraud sprang forward, handcuffs at the ready. "Mademoiselle Bertrand, you are under arrest." As she was led away, the storm seemed to abate, rain softening to a patter. The room exhaled collectively. Henri slumped in relief. Claire embraced Victor, tears flowing. Pierre busied himself clearing glasses. Hastings approached Poirot. "Brilliant, old friend. How did you pierce the veil?" Poirot smiled modestly. "Order and method, Hastings. The human heart betrays itself in details, the overplayed piety, the coded grudges. Sophie alone connected all threads, access, knowledge, venom." Giraud grudgingly extended a hand. "Well done, Poirot, though I'd have got there eventually." Poirot bowed. "Doubtless, Inspector. Now, perhaps a tisane to calm the nerves?" The villa, purged of its poison, began to breathe again. Outside, the sea calmed, stars piercing the clouds like revealed truths. Chapter 7. The Calm After the Storm. The tempest that had raged through the night gave way to a dawn of crystalline clarity over the Côte d'Azur. The Moonstone villa, battered by wind and rain, now stood bathed in soft morning light, its white walls glistening as if washed clean of the previous horrors. The sea below lay placid, its surface a mirror reflecting the azure sky, with only gentle waves lapping at the cliffs, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had engulfed the household. Hercule Poirot, having savored a leisurely breakfast of fresh croissants and strong coffee on the terrace, felt the satisfaction of a case resolved. His mustache, perfectly waxed, twitched with contentment as he surveyed the transformed landscape. Inspector Giraud, his bluster somewhat deflated by Poirot's triumph, had departed at first light with the prisoner in tow. Sophie Bertrand, her prim facade shattered, had been led away in handcuffs, her confessions spilling forth like the storm's deluge. The villa's inhabitants, freed from the shadow of suspicion, moved about with a tentative relief, their steps lighter, though echoes of grief lingered in their eyes. Captain Hastings joined Poirot on the terrace, his face alight with admiration. "A masterstroke, Poirot. The way you unraveled it all, the glove, the diary codes, the vial fragments. Sophie never stood a chance against your gray cells." Poirot inclined his head modestly. "Ah, mon ami, it was merely the application of logic to the chaos of human passions. Greed and resentment are potent poisons, often more deadly than cyanide. Sophie, blinded by years of perceived injustice, crafted her plan with care, but overlooked the small details that betray the criminal mind." They strolled the terraced gardens, where gardeners tended to uprooted plants and scattered debris from the night's fury. The air carried the fresh scent of wet earth and blooming jasmine, a balm to the senses. Henri Dupont emerged from the villa, his posture straighter than in days past, though his eyes bore the weight of loss. He approached with a hesitant nod. "Monsieur Poirot, I owe you a debt beyond words. Without you, that harpy would have destroyed us all. The police, Giraud, saw only the surface." Poirot waved a dismissive hand. "It is my métier, monsieur. But tell me, the estate, now secure?" Henri sighed, gazing at the sea. "Claire inherits, as Elise wished. I'll manage the villa, perhaps sell portions to settle affairs. And the Moonstone. We must address that." At Poirot's suggestion, the group convened in the cellar, a cool, dimly lit chamber lined with wine racks and forgotten crates. Claire led the way, her key unlocking a concealed panel behind a dusty barrel. With Victor's assistance, she pried loose a stone, revealing a small velvet pouch. Inside gleamed the Moonstone, a luminous blue diamond, facets catching the lantern light like captured stars. Henri's breath caught. Magnificent, Elise's great-grandfather's legacy, real after all. Claire held it reverently. Mother hid it here recently, fearing theft, but now, perhaps a museum, as she intended? Or... Victor placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your choice, darling. Independence or preservation." Poirot observed their exchange with a knowing smile. "The gem's true value lies not in carats, but in the lessons it imparts. Greed corrupted Sophie. Let it not taint others." They emerged into the sunlight, the decision deferred for calmer times. Pierre, overseeing luncheon preparations, moved with renewed purpose. Poirot drew him aside in the kitchen amid the clatter of pots and the aroma of simmering herbs. "Pierre, your loyalty, proven despite temptations. The digs, the minor lapses, they are forgiven?" The butler nodded gratefully. "Monsieur Dupont has assured my position. Madame's death, a tragedy, but the villa endures. Luncheon was served al fresco, under a canopy shielding from the warming sun. The meal, fresh salads, grilled prawns from the morning's catch, light wines, fostered a semblance of normalcy. Conversation turned from shadows to brighter horizons. Claire and Victor's wedding plans, now unhindered. Henri's intent to travel, seeking solace in distant shores. Yet Poirot, ever perceptive, noted undercurrents. Victor's gaze lingered on the pouch at Claire's side, a flicker of calculation swiftly masked. Henri poured wine with a steadier hand, but his laughter rang forced. Even Pierre's service held a watchful edge. As coffee arrived, Poirot addressed them collectively. Mes amis, with justice served, one must guard against lingering poisons. The Moonstone, decide wisely. Donate it and honor Elise's spirit. Hoard it and invite fresh curses. Claire nodded thoughtfully. To the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Nice, then. Let it inspire, not divide. Victor acquiesced with grace, though Poirot detected relief rather than disappointment. Henri raised his cup, a fitting tribute. Afternoon brought leisure. Hastings challenged Victor to a game of croquet on the lawn, their mallets clicking amid laughter. Claire and Henri walked the cliffs, sharing memories of Elise. Sophie's absence loomed, but as a cautionary void rather than a threat. Poirot, reclining in a deck chair with a herbal tisane, reflected on the case's intricacies. Hastings, he called as the game concluded. Observe how tranquility returns, yet the human heart remains enigmatic. Victor, his forgeries forgiven? Claire's independence truly secured? Hastings mopped his brow, victorious in the match. All's well that ends well, eh? Giraud will claim credit in reports, no doubt. Poirot chuckled. Let him. Poirot seeks not acclaim, but order restored. Evening descended softly, the sun dipping into the sea in a blaze of crimson and gold. The household gathered for a quiet dinner, candles flickering in the dining room. Toasts were raised, to Elise, to justice, to new beginnings. Pierre served with quiet efficiency, the meal a symphony of flavors. Bouillabaisse, rich with saffron, cheeses from local farms, fruits dripping with sweetness. Post-dinner in the salon, Henri produced cigars and liqueurs. Conversation flowed freely, anecdotes of past Riviera scandals mingling with plans for the future. Victor sketched idly, capturing the group's profiles. Claire played soft melodies on the piano. Poirot, content, excused himself early. A true vacation awaits, sans murder. Bonsoir. In his room, he packed methodically, his mind already turning to London's fogs. Hastings knocked, entering with a grin. Off tomorrow? Pity. The air here suits you. Poirot smiled. The body rests, but the gray cells crave new puzzles, yet this interlude, refreshing. Dawn saw their departure. The motor car wound down the cliff road, the villa receding like a dream. Claire and Victor waved from the terrace, Henri beside them, Pierre a shadow in the doorway. As Nice's station approached, Hastings pondered aloud. The Moonstone, safely en route to the museum. Poirot nodded. Escorted by Giraud's men this morning, its glow will illuminate history, not ignite greed. The train whistle pierced the air, summoning them aboard. Settling into their compartment, Poirot gazed at the receding coastline. Another chapter closes, mon ami, but life, like the sea, brings endless tides. Hastings laughed. Until the next mystery finds you? Poirot's eyes twinkled. Inevitably. The villa, now serene, held its secrets no more. The Moonstone, ensconced in glass at the museum, drew admirers, a silent testament to folly and forgiveness. And in the annals of crime, the murder at the Moonstone Villa became legend, a tale of passion, poison, and the indomitable Hercule Poirot.